Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. Today we will talk about how India has started reopening doors for Chinese investments. 9 months back, after China launched military aggression on the Ladakh border, India placed curbs on Chinese investments as one of the retaliatory measures. Now, as the engagement process has started on the border, the Indian government has reportedly started clearing Chinese FDI proposals. Is this indicative of things moving towards normalization between the two countries? How beneficial will this step be for Indian economy? We will try to seek answers to such questions in the agenda today. We have with us retired diplomat Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri and economist Professor Aman Agarwal. But before we start our conversation, let's have a look at this small report.
India has reportedly started reopening doors for investments from China after a 9-month freeze imposed after the Chinese military aggression launched in Ladakh sector of line of actual control. The Indian government has reportedly given approval to some small FDI proposals from China recently, and clearance to bigger project is in the pipeline. The approvals are most likely to be given to greenfield or brownfield investment proposals only in those sectors which are not sensitive to national security. India had put the curbs in retaliation to Chinese aggression, which was aimed at altering the status quo on the LAC. The move to lift the curbs coincides with the military disengagement process that is underway on the LAC. The first phase disengagement has been completed in Pangong Lake area, with militaries of the two countries moving back from the friction point along with arsenals like tanks and missiles. At one point of time, each country had about 50,000 troops along with fighter planes, missiles and tanks deployed along the LAC in eyeball-to-eyeball situation. The possibility of a full-fledged war loomed large, especially after the troops of the two countries had a physical clash in Galwan Valley on June 15 last year, in which India lost 20 soldiers and China suffered unspecified number of casualties. The move on FDI alongside the LAC disengagement suggests that the two countries are moving toward establishing thaw in their ties. Bureau Report.
Now let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Manjeev Singh Puri and Professor Aman Agarwal, economist. Welcome to the program, both of you, sir. So let me begin by asking Ambassador Puri about India's decision to reopen doors or windows for Chinese investment after a 9-month freeze. How do you see this development?
Ajay, thank you very much for asking me this question. I think this question is a very important, and your viewers to understand that governments have and must exercise policies which deal with foreign countries. At the height of the Ladakh crisis, a proper messaging had to go, and the Chinese had to understand that matters cannot be that you have business as usual on one, and on the other hand, you have aggression and expansion against India.
Right.
I am convinced that the message is loud and clear and understood, and I wouldn't even be surprised if through the via media, people in business, in industry, there is a certain message being conveyed that in good understanding the importance of the Indian economy for China also stands at their end. Now, I'm not very familiar with the exact decisions which might be coming about, but I do believe that in limited FDI, non-strategic sector, greenfield sector are things that we are willing to accept and take things forward. After all, we are a growing economy which needs finance, needs technology, and the Chinese are purveyors of both of them.
Possibly these will be in non-strategic sectors, but as we heard, Uttar Pradesh Chief Minister, after presentation of budget in the State Assembly, he announced that a major project around, I think, 5,000 crore project will be launched with Chinese investment. So, what does it tell
I'm
you
not
that
aware
is?
of that project,
Yeah.
but I am sure due diligence in terms of the impact of Chinese investment in the project would have been made by both the state as well as the region. And if it benefits the people of Uttar Pradesh and people, my convinced even he should welcome it.
Right. So I'll go to Professor Agarwal. Professor Agarwal, how do you see this development after 9 month freeze? Now India is again started, I mean, accepting FDI from China. How do you see the development?
Government of India to open up the fixed non-direct investments route. I think it's an important move from the perspective that we need both development and FDI flows worldwide, both based on studies of the World Bank and the IMF, and even practical studies in the country have shown really positive results. The important factor is the structure as why the FDI restriction was placed in place 9 months back. And the important there was that FDI investment was slipping in quietly into companies and taking over large number of companies, indirectly taking over control of information as well as the strategic making, which could be undertaken by those companies in terms of dealing with India and the way we work with India. And that is something which is a significant concern, and a concern in terms of destabilizing or any kind of financial system, organizational framework within any country or a region. And this is one of the key reasons why it was done so. Now, given the fact that the government has taken those controls and taken of where was such kind of investment made, it was important to reopen. Otherwise, it will creep in again and find ways to keep into India, may not directly from China, but maybe to start with countries like Mauritius and others, into the country again and take indirect control. So it is important that we open up the right time, giving the legitimate funds want to come in, money for themselves, and infuse growth and prosperity for this. So I think it's a very good move that the move which has been done by the government.
So, Professor Agarwal, as a supplementary, after I mean India imposed the curbs, China government said it will hurt the Indian consumers more than us. So, at the end of the day, do you think it was hurting India more or Chinese more? Who will benefit more now?
True, I agree. You see why China said that? Why? It's because it has infiltrated the companies who are into consumer retail segments. Like a chunk of the Paytm is the investment coming through Chinese investment. Now, actually, if you're going to restrict that to sample the structure, and that is what the government was afraid of. At any stage, if that kind of a thing happens, it can collapse the whole system, whether it's financial or otherwise. Now, given that there have been check mechanisms in place, how did they know what kind of investment in those kind of erratic decisions by any country, as a matter of fact, that China or any other country wants to do the silent FDI. So this is something which is important. So direct investment is not bad, but it is quiet and it's sitting there without knowledge, information, which can actually induce the stress, both security and financial, is something which is bad. That is something which the government is able to bring under control and use systems to not that happen. There is nothing which can be foolproof, but to make extent to which the government has used security measures so that we are getting those positive results instead of creating a havoc for this country.
Yeah, sure. So, Ambassador Puri, we have also seen a report that which says that Chinese investments or funding into India declined by 1/3 last year as compared to 2019 because of the curbs. So, when we see this, I mean, is it if the funds again start coming in, is it beneficial for our Atmanirbhar Bharat, whatever we are, I mean, our campaign for Atmanirbhar Bharat, or runs against it? What do you say?
Ajay, my understanding Atmanirbhar Bharat is really in India. It is not restricting FDI flows. It's also not protectionism. I like Professor Agarwal. It's better to know the source from where the investment is coming rather than self blind fact. Now, these Chinese figures could really be a case of that, but I do think we need to understand that during COVID days, no matter Chinese economy did than anyone else, their ability in carrying out FDI investment overseas would not have been as great as it has been. So I think we certainly factor in COVID and what it thereafter cannot rule what the politics, the general scene that remains. Let us understand that Chinese companies which invest in India also do due diligence. They also understand what is the mahal, as they say, what is going on in the society. Is it a good company to make an investment? These are all factors that go into play by anybody making a direct investment. Economics is one. Most big companies also look at ground reality, politics. They are important. And I think we must remember this would have contributed to it a relative easing, try and take the little. Of course, in time, much more confidence building measures, change over from what is seen, etc., would have to be done. But the idea that you allow direct investments through the automatic route is usually a good one. It better transparency and better control.
Yeah, if we talk about funding, Professor Agarwal, so when we talked about Atmanirbhar Bharat, or when we impose curbs, suppose if we take one sector about telecom, smartphone sector, so when we said that don't buy Chinese products, but there are only mostly Chinese products, yeah, I mean the smartphone sector, at least 80%, 90%, and I think they continue to be sold here. So those were the handicaps, isn't it? Those are the real handicaps in the Atmanirbhar campaign. What do you say on that?
No, I think it is looking beyond the handicap. We have identified the challenges. Before us, the opportunity. Whether it is foreign direct China or any other country, establish and build upon a stronger India or Indian industry integration, I think we would certainly see the need and preference for cheap goods or cheap products going out, even Chinese products going out. But the most important thing here, as far as the foreign direct investment is concerned, is the kind of dependence one develops of the direct investment, like we have seen in the case of Chile and other countries, where they have had major dependence. But it is not the case with India in particular. The Indian economy is actually self-grown and self-sustainable. Actually, it's in on itself. Most of the investment, whether it is manufacturing, whether it is agriculture, comes from within the country. And the consumers of these products are also from within the country. We are fairly self-sufficient in the last 2 years that are not going to be at the crunches or the trickle of the investments, foreign direct investments, or any kind of investments made overseas, or even as a matter of fact, trade. But to bring a check, even for fact, both for the banking industry, for the market, that is where the government's eyes have gone, and they have been able to use partially to a great extent some of the checks and balances. As I said, there are certainly still, like Mauritius and others, which are beyond the check as of now, where we are seeing large amount of investment come in, which is not known, and actually could be a result of not or could be a result of creating some of these products which will actually capture the market. But given the fact that the Atmanirbhar Bharat, while we were already producing services, I think is something which is novel for the government. And whether it is healthcare or any other system, you raised the point of China's investment large scale. It's very critical to understand that during COVID, very few countries really saw any kind of support. Most countries actually withdrew the because they needed that money for growth and development and sustenance. As despite that, the RBI monetary policy report last and even previous month clearly indicates that we had a huge inflow of foreign direct investment in the last one and a half year,
Right.
raising our foreign exchange reserve to about $600 billion and beyond. Now, please understand, this is the country where world is looking at India. And fortunately, with the Prime Minister giving the hydrochlorine during the COVID period, and now the vaccines which are being given were free. Like even in Maldives the other day, the Prime Minister was there to give another 1 lakh doses of vaccine. Previous 1 lakh was given. Now this is bringing in a new brand equity where there is a more respect, more structured facilities, and these countries would take care of the fact that they would not like to have any kind of an illicit money moving through an FDI route, because they are benefiting from the democratic structures are creating and growth for their country and others. That is something which is critical. That's why we are still seeing the foreign direct investment and wanting to invest despite the kind of barriers we have to create 9 months back.
Right. So, Ambassador Puri, some people are saying, like as we understand that the disengagement process is underway still. Only in one friction point it has been completed, but there are still 3-4 friction points where there is no headway. So, possibly this was a maybe premature move. We should have waited for the entire complete disengagement, then reopen the doors. What do you say?
Ajay, disengage is a pro. At one particular point, we have now visual evidence of the two armies engaging. The Honorable Defense Minister was on record in Parliament saying the next rounds will discuss the investigation. Issues FDI are not issues which are going to take place tomorrow. They are policy pronouncements which then result in companies, corporates, funds, financiers looking at factors. You have to look at long-term perspective on this. And it is messaging and signaling, which is important. Now, if your FDI policy said a blanket no, that's the end of the matter. But you give calibrated signal. And the calibrated signal that is being given is that the wonderful large economy which is in, with which China has built large relations in the last 5-10 years would become again essentially a possibility for them within certain boundaries. But they need to understand that there is a use for this economy.
So you want to say that China, this was a signal to China, if you take panga with us, you have a cost to pay, is it?
Look, if you take panga with a country like India, there is a cost to be.
Yeah.
I think that is to everybody in the world, not just the Chinese which you are talking about. The Pakistanis have known this all. The other message is that we are a good, wonderful, and a large player, and you can benefit by being partners with,
Right.
even if we have certain degree of differentiation.
So we have been, in fact, despite the trade imbalance, huge trade imbalance, we have been growing together, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And let us not forget that there are a very large number of Indian companies which operate in China. There are a very large number of Indians who work in China. In fact, I point out our first set of coronavirus cases were Indians in Wuhan who came back to India.
Right.
And the number of Chinese working in India. Let us also remember a large number of products made by Indian companies in India. A lot of base to China. Sometime back, some mention was made of corona drugs and corona medical. India used to import. Once we said no, ramped it up. We are one of the biggest in the world. Similarly, the bulk drugs through pharmaceutical formulation done by Indian generics are coming from China. But the signal meant that you need to do something. That's what policy implications are all about.
Right.
And I think we moved this in the right direction in a reasonably well calibrated.
So, Professor Agarwal, I'll come to you. We talked about the signaling to China that if you take Panga with us, you have a cost to pay. But at the same time, I read report that Chinese investors may be not too enthusiastic, considering that there have been hiccups. So maybe they will, I mean, take cautious look at this reopening and then maybe think about investment. I mean, new investors. What do you say?
No, I think it is a message to the world. International agencies and rating agencies have also got this message very clear, where it is understand that we are putting our house in order. And when you're trying to put our house in order, we are actually trying to get through this framework where we are wanting economic structures to be there. It is not only China, a large number of other countries, including some of the developed countries, which have used some of these mechanisms influence various countries across the globe. So it is not only China per se that for them, it is a message for everybody large across the globe. And I think the message has gone strong and well. You see the rating agencies have actually rated us better as against what they were doing before. And the perspective of India and the way regulatory framework designed and structured has got a better, approach as against what it used to be. So it is, I think, giving a good signal to the world at large. As regards China, we need to work together and going forward. As Ambassador said also, that there can be different trends, but that's not the way we go about dealing with. You see, is it right time to open up or not open? Always say, when it happened with trade or digitalization, in 1990s. You see, you ask a woman, are you ready to be a mother? She would never be ready that way. She has enough. Are you ready to swim the Atlantic? You have to test it up and go through it. You ask a young man, are you ready for this job? Most of them would be not sure about it.
No,
It is a question of
but
moving in.
but Professor
And it's
Agarwal,
important to
what I
open
was
up and take corrective actions.
but what I was trying to ask is like after this freeze, I mean this stumbling block or this happened, freeze happened. Now new investors apparently, read reports in Chinese media that they may be hesitant since now they know that it is an accident-prone area. Earlier it was a free for all, so maybe they may be having a real look or second thoughts about investing in India. Do you agree with that view?
There may be some who may have that. You see, investment doesn't flow that way. If they think they're going to get sufficient return, and India has shown to large companies from Africa that we have produced revenue for them, consistent revenue, sustained revenue, and stipulated growth. Many of the countries, companies have actually made us as a place to actually provide and export goods from here to the rest of the world for them. So whether it's Chinese or Asian or even German or French, many of them are doing. So it is not that, this will be a part of something which they'll be sure of that they not actually play with rules and regulations, but hiding the funds which they're bringing into the country with qualified intention. So those companies which have had that kind of intention, investors, real investors, right, from a situation would always want to take advantage of the growth impetus we are having. We are having a projection of about 8.9% next year. We may even cross 5% given the potential we have. Now, if it's a question to be part of the growth or not to be part of that, do you want to miss the bus or do you want to take the flight which are coming within India?
Right. So we had to close. I think Ambassador Puri, you wanted to say something, I guess.
It is conceivably that India is an upward path. The Chinese Corona storm also. I would say to them that partnership with India and keeping contestations down is perhaps their larger, and they better realize something, that India is a country of all. It is not a push for either militaries or in terms of economic. And therefore, a partnership, while of course there will be global competition, but a partnership would be in their interest, that it would be in our interest. We have never contested this. And I think this is the result of this measure. We are at a preliminary stage. Many things have to happen. Let me say, snap the web was very easy to do. But rebuild it takes a long time. And trust would have to be built. Critical trust, and trust, and of course, economic trust too.
Right.
It takes time, and it will be a time consuming.
Yeah, the trust has to be rebuilt, in fact, after all this strains and tensions between the two countries. But the program time is over today. Thank you, both of you, for participating in this debate.
Namaskar.
This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.